A young soldier stands at his front door after 3 years of deployment. His hand trembles as he reaches for the handle. Inside, a dog he raised from a puppy waits, a dog who hasn't seen him since he was barely more than a boy himself. What happens in the next 60 seconds will change everything you think you know about loyalty, memory, and the unbreakable bonds that survive even war itself. This isn't just another heartwarming reunion story. This is about how 4 soldiers, 4 dogs, and 1 small town discovered something so profound about love and sacrifice that it would reshape an entire community's understanding of what it means to come home. If you've ever loved someone who had to leave, if you've ever wondered whether time and distance can truly break a bond, then you need to hear this story. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what unfolds in the next 40 minutes will stay with you forever. And trust me, you'll want to share this with everyone you know. Millbrook wasn't the kind of town you'd find on any map app. Tucked away in the rolling hills of North Carolina, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where Friday night meant high school football, and where leaving for military service was both an honor and a heartbreak the whole town shared. In the spring of 2019, 4 young people from Millbrook enlisted within weeks of each other. There was Marcus Webb, 21, a gentle giant who'd spent his teenage years volunteering at the local animal shelter. Then came Sarah Chen, 19, valedictorian of her high school class, whose quiet determination masked a warrior's heart. James Jimmy Rodriguez was 20, the class clown who made everyone laugh but carried deeper waters than anyone suspected. And finally, there was Mia Thompson, just 18, the youngest of 4 siblings, following in her grandfather's footsteps. But here's what made their stories different from countless other soldiers. Each of them had a dog waiting at home. Not just pets, soul companions. Marcus had found Duke behind a dumpster when the German Shepherd was just 6 weeks old, half-starved and shivering in a cardboard box. Marcus was only 16 then, going through his own dark time after his father's death. They saved each other, really. Duke would sleep with his head on Marcus's chest, as if listening to make sure his human's heart kept beating. The morning Marcus left for basic training, Duke seemed to know something was different. He followed Marcus from room to room, his dark eyes tracking every movement. When Marcus knelt down in his uniform to say goodbye, Duke placed his paw on Marcus's knee and whined, a sound that would echo in Marcus's mind through 3 years of deployment in Afghanistan. "I'll be back, boy," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. "You wait for me." Sarah's border collie, Luna, was a different kind of companion. Rescued from an abusive situation, Luna had terrible anxiety when Sarah first brought her home. But Sarah had patience that seemed infinite. She spent months teaching Luna that the world could be safe, that love didn't have to hurt. Luna became Sarah's shadow, her protector, her reason to get up on the hardest days. When Sarah received her deployment orders to Iraq, it was Luna who noticed first. The packed bags, the tension in the house. Luna stopped eating for 2 days. Sarah's mother found them the night before Sarah left, both curled up in Sarah's childhood bed, Sarah crying into Luna's fur while the dog licked away her tears as if she could taste the sadness and wanted to take it away. Jimmy Rodriguez and his Jack Russell Terrier, Rocket, were pure chaos and joy. Rocket had boundless energy that matched Jimmy's own wild spirit. They ran together every morning, Rocket's little legs pumping twice as fast to keep up with Jimmy's long strides. Jimmy's deployment to Syria came suddenly, sooner than expected. His little sister, Elena, was only 12, and she promised to take care of Rocket. But the night before Jimmy left, Rocket refused to leave Jimmy's side. He sat at the front door where Jimmy's boots were lined up, guarding them as if he could prevent the leaving if he just watched carefully enough. "Take care of my girls," Jimmy told Rocket, scratching behind his ears. "I'm counting on you, little man." And then there was Mia and Bear, a golden retriever who got his name because as a puppy, he looked exactly like a teddy bear. Mia's grandfather had given her Bear as a puppy just months before he passed away from cancer. In many ways, Bear carried her grandfather's spirit, gentle and wise and endlessly loving. Mia's deployment to Afghanistan was the hardest on her family. She was the baby, the one they all protected. Bear seemed to sense the gravity of it all. The morning she left, he walked her to the car in silence, then sat at the end of the driveway for hours after she drove away, waiting for her to come back. Mia's mother took a photo of Bear sitting there, his golden fur catching the morning light, his eyes fixed on the empty road. She would send that photo to Mia dozens of times over the next 3 years, a reminder of what waited at home. Time works differently for dogs. They don't understand deployments or tours of duty. They only know that their person left and hasn't come back. Duke began a ritual within days of Marcus's departure. Every afternoon at 3:47 p.m., exactly when Marcus used to come home from his job at the hardware store, Duke would go to the front window and wait. Marcus's mother would find him there, his tail still, his eyes scanning every car that passed. "He's not coming today, Duke," she'd say softly, her own heart breaking. But Duke would wait until darkness fell, then finally, reluctantly, walk away from the window. Months became a year. Duke never stopped waiting. Luna's response was more concerning. The anxious behaviors Sarah had so carefully helped her overcome came flooding back. She paced the house at night. She wouldn't eat unless Sarah's mother hand-fed her. The vet could find nothing physically wrong. "She's grieving," the vet finally said. "Dogs can absolutely experience depression." Sarah's mother started sleeping in Sarah's old room, wearing Sarah's sweatshirts, trying to provide some comfort. Luna would curl up next to her, but even in sleep, she whimpered. And every time the phone rang, Luna's ears would perk up with hope, as if she recognized the possibility of Sarah's voice. Rocket took a different approach. He became Jimmy's family's fierce protector. The playful, chaotic energy shifted into something more purposeful. He learned where each family member would be throughout the day and made rounds, checking on them. Elena, Jimmy's little sister, became Rocket's special charge. He walked her to the school bus every morning, waited at that same spot every afternoon. If anyone approached Elena too quickly or too loudly, Rocket would position himself between them, not aggressive, but alert, watchful. "He's doing Jimmy's job," Elena told her mother one night. "He's taking care of us like Jimmy asked." But at night, Rocket would take Jimmy's favorite hoodie from the laundry hamper and sleep with it in Jimmy's bed. Jimmy's mother found this heartbreaking and beautiful in equal measure. She stopped washing that hoodie, letting it retain Jimmy's scent for as long as possible. Bear carried the heaviest weight. Golden retrievers are empathic by nature, and Bear felt the sadness that permeated Mia's home. Her mother cried often those first months. Her father worked longer hours to avoid the empty house. Her siblings scattered to college and work, everyone handling the absence in their own way. Bear tried to fix it. He'd bring toys to Mia's mother when she cried. He'd rest his head in her father's lap during the lonely evenings. He gained weight because everyone fed him treats, seeking comfort and caring for something Mia had loved. But every night, without fail, Bear would go to Mia's room. He'd jump on her bed, circle 3 times, and settle into the impression her body had left in the mattress. Mia's mother left the sheets unchanged for 2 months before finally washing them. Bear watched her strip the bed with what could only be described as betrayal in his eyes. Something unexpected began to happen in Millbrook. The 4 dogs became symbols. People in town would stop and pet Duke during his window vigils, sharing their own stories of loved ones deployed or lost. They'd bring Luna treats and gentle words. Kids would play with Rocket at the bus stop, their laughter a brief respite. Families would visit Bear at the park, finding comfort in his gentle presence. The dogs, in their waiting, were teaching the town something about loyalty, about faith, about the kind of love that doesn't diminish with distance or time. Sarah's mother started a support group for families of deployed soldiers, meeting at her house specifically so Luna could be there. The presence of the grieving dog seemed to give permission for humans to grieve too, to admit how hard the waiting was. Marcus's mother began posting Duke's daily window vigils on Facebook. The posts went viral in military family circles. Thousands of people followed Duke's wait, finding in his faithfulness a reflection of their own. Year 2 was the hardest. The initial surge of community support faded as life returned to normal for everyone except those still waiting. Video calls were rare and precious. Letters came sporadically. The soldiers were changing in ways their families couldn't see, experiencing things they couldn't share. But the dogs never wavered. Duke still went to the window at 3:47. Luna still perked up at every phone call. Rocket still walked Elena to the bus and slept with Jimmy's hoodie. Bear still spent nights in Mia's room. Time might work differently for dogs, but their memories, their love, doesn't fade. Scientists will tell you that dogs live in the present moment, but these 4 dogs proved something else entirely. They lived in a present shaped by the past, waiting for a future when their people would return. Around the 2.5-year mark, a cruel question began to surface in quiet moments. The families wondered, though they felt guilty for wondering. Would the dogs even remember? 3 years is a long time in a dog's life. Duke was getting older, his muzzle graying. Luna had settled into a routine with Sarah's mother. Rocket had bonded deeply with Elena. Bear had become the family's shared comfort. What if the soldiers came home to dogs who looked at them like strangers? Marcus's mother raised this fear one night at the support group. What if Duke doesn't remember him? It would break Marcus. The room fell silent. It was the fear none of them wanted to name. Sarah's mother, ever the researcher, dove into the science. She consulted with veterinary behaviorists, read studies, watched countless reunion videos online. What she learned gave her hope. Dogs don't just remember their people. They remember the feeling of being with them. They remember scent patterns that can remain in their olfactory memory for years. They remember the sound of specific footsteps, specific voices, specific heartbeats. More than that, the depth of the bond matters. A casual relationship might fade, but these bonds, forged in the intensity of young love and mutual rescue, these bonds were different. These bonds lived in the dog's bones. She shared this research with the group, and it spread through Millbrook like wildfire. The dogs would remember. They had to remember. But doubt is a persistent shadow, and it lingered. Something beautiful happened in year 3. The waiting became less painful, more purposeful. The families and dogs settled into a rhythm that honored both the absence and the hope. Marcus's mother started running with Duke every morning, keeping him healthy and active for Marcus's return. She trained him in new commands, keeping his mind sharp. Sarah's family created a video diary for Sarah with Luna, showing her the life her dog was living, the way she'd grown and healed even in the waiting. Elena taught Rocket new tricks to surprise Jimmy with. Every Monday, she'd work on something new. Rocket now knew 17 different commands, far more than when Jimmy left. Mia's family took Bear on adventures, to the beach, to the mountains, creating memories and experiences that Mia could share when she returned. They photographed everything, building a chronicle of Bear's life without her, so she wouldn't have missed it entirely. The waiting became an act of love, not just endurance. In November 2022, the calls started coming. Tour complete, coming home, Marcus first, then Sarah 2 weeks later. Jimmy and Mia within days of each other in December. Millbrook erupted in preparation. Yellow ribbons appeared on every tree on Main Street. The high school planned a welcome home assembly. Local restaurants prepared free meals. But beyond all the human celebration, 4 families held a secret, breathless question. What will the dogs do? Marcus's flight landed at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. His mother wanted to pick him up immediately, but Marcus said no. "Tomorrow," he said. "I want to come home at 3:47. The next afternoon, Duke took his usual position at the window. Marcus's mother's hands shook as she watched the clock. 3:45, 3:46. Duke's tail began to wag, just slightly, though no car was visible yet. 3:47. Marcus's truck turned onto their street. Duke's entire body went rigid. Then he exploded, barking, crying, spinning in circles, racing to the door and back to the window. Before Marcus could even get the truck in park, Duke was throwing himself against the front door with such force that Marcus's mother had to brace it. She opened it. Duke flew across the yard, and Marcus dropped to his knees in the driveway just in time to catch 70 pounds of German Shepherd launching into his arms. Duke was crying, actually crying, tears streaming from his eyes as he buried his face in Marcus's neck. Then licked his face, then howled with joy, then buried his face again as if he couldn't believe this was real. Marcus was sobbing. His mother was sobbing. The neighbors who had gathered were sobbing. "You waited," Marcus kept saying. "Good boy. You waited for me." Duke didn't leave Marcus's side for 3 days. He followed him to the bathroom. He slept with his entire body pressed against Marcus, occasionally waking to lick Marcus's face as if confirming he was still there. The dog who had waited 1,247 days at the window never had to wait again. Sarah's reunion with Luna was quieter but no less profound. Sarah's family set it up carefully. She arrived home while Luna was in the backyard. Sarah went to her old room first, sat on her bed, and called softly, "Luna, Luna, come here, girl." Luna's ears perked up from the yard. She cocked her head. Then she began to whine, that same sound she'd made the day Sarah left. She ran to the back door, and when Sarah's mother opened it, Luna bolted inside and up the stairs. She stopped in the doorway of Sarah's room. For one long moment, dog and human just stared at each other. Luna was shaking. Then Sarah said, "I'm home, Luna. I'm home." Luna walked slowly across the room, as if afraid Sarah might disappear. She pressed her nose to Sarah's hand, inhaling deeply. Then she collapsed against Sarah and something released in her body. The tension she'd carried for 3 years just melted. Sarah's mother watched Luna transform in that moment. The anxious behaviors stopped immediately. The dog, who had been sleeping fitfully for years, curled up in Sarah's lap and slept for 6 hours straight, the deepest sleep she'd had since Sarah left. She knew, Sarah whispered to her mother later. All that time, she never forgot what home felt like. Jimmy's homecoming was pure chaos, exactly as it should be. Elena was in on the surprise. Jimmy hid in the garage while Rocket was in the backyard. Elena called Rocket inside, and as he trotted through the kitchen, Jimmy stepped out. Rocket stopped. His ears shot up. His entire back end started wagging so hard he fell over. Then he started doing something none of them had ever seen. He was simultaneously barking, crying, and doing backflips, actual backflips. He launched himself at Jimmy, who caught him and lifted him above his head. Rocket licked his face frantically. Then Jimmy would lower him. Rocket would do another backflip, and Jimmy would lift him again. This went on for 5 minutes straight. But then Rocket did something that made Jimmy lose it. He ran to Jimmy's room, grabbed the hoodie he'd been sleeping with for 3 years, and brought it to Jimmy, dropping it at his feet, as if to say, "I kept this safe for you." Jimmy picked up that hoodie, threadbare and faded from 3 years of nightly comfort, and he understood. Rocket hadn't just waited. Rocket had kept a piece of him alive, for his family, for Elena, for everyone. "You did your job, little man," Jimmy said, and Rocket's tail wagged with what could only be called pride. Mia's homecoming was scheduled for December 22nd, but her flight got delayed. She wouldn't make it home until the 24th, Christmas Eve. Her family was devastated, but they decided to make the best of it. On the evening of the 23rd, Mia's mother found Bear in Mia's room, lying on her bed as always. But this time was different. Bear wasn't sleeping. He was staring at the door, alert, waiting. "Not yet, Bear," her mother said sadly. "Tomorrow." But Bear wouldn't leave the room. He stayed there all night. When morning came, he was still at attention. At 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Bear stood up and walked downstairs. He went to the front door and sat. Mia's mother checked her phone. No updates. Mia's flight wasn't due until 6 p.m., and then it was an hour drive home. Bear didn't move. At 3:30, Mia's mother's phone rang. "Mom?" It was Mia. "I got on an earlier flight. I'm in a taxi. I'm 15 minutes away." Mia's mother's jaw dropped. She looked at Bear, who was now whining at the door, his tail wagging. "Bear," she whispered. "How did you know?" When the taxi pulled up, Mia's mother opened the door and Bear streaked out like a golden bullet. Mia stepped out of the car and dropped to the ground just in time. Bear hit her with such force they both went rolling in the grass, dog and human tangled together, laughing and crying and completely overwhelmed. But then, Bear did something that made everyone stop. He stood up, walked a few feet away, and looked back at Mia, then at her mother, then at her father and siblings gathered on the porch. He walked to each family member, touched his nose to their hand, then returned to Mia. Mia's brother said it first. "He's telling us she's home. He's telling everyone she's home safe." Bear had carried the weight of their grief for 3 years. Now he was releasing it, one person at a time. The job was complete. His person had returned. The videos of these reunions went viral. Millions of people watched Marcus and Duke, Sarah and Luna, Jimmy and Rocket, Mia and Bear. The comment sections overflowed with stories of military families, of deployments, of the animals who waited and remembered. But something else happened. Millbrook became famous for something beautiful. The town that remembered how to wait with hope. The town where 4 dogs taught everyone what loyalty really meant. Other military families started reaching out. Support groups formed. A non-profit was created to help families care for their pets during deployments, to keep that bond strong across the distance. Sarah's mother became a spokesperson for veteran mental health, talking about how Luna's unconditional love helped Sarah's transition back to civilian life in ways therapy alone couldn't. Marcus started a program training service dogs for veterans with PTSD, with Duke as his co-trainer. Duke, who had waited so long, now helped other dogs learn to serve and wait and love. Jimmy and Elena created a YouTube channel documenting Rocket's tricks, but really sharing Jimmy's journey with combat trauma and recovery. The comment section became a community of support. Mia wrote a book about her deployment experience, dedicated to Bear, who had kept her family whole while she kept her country safe. The reunions also sparked scientific interest. Researchers studied the videos, interviewed the families, examined what made these bonds so resilient. What they found was remarkable. The dogs hadn't just remembered. They had maintained active emotional connections across time and space. The daily rituals, the scent-preserved items, the consistent family structure, all had created what researchers called sustained attachment in absence. This research changed how the military approached family support services. Programs were developed to help maintain pet-soldier bonds during deployment. Care packages for the pets, video call protocols, scent preservation techniques. The 4 dogs of Millbrook had accidentally become the subjects of groundbreaking research into love, memory, and the unbreakable nature of certain bonds. Who is the hero? A year after all 4 soldiers returned, Millbrook held a ceremony. They wanted to honor Marcus, Sarah, Jimmy, and Mia for their service. But something unexpected happened. Elena, now 15 and wiser than her years, stood at the podium. "Everyone wants to call my brother a hero," she said. "And he is. They all are. But I learned something while he was gone." She gestured to Rocket, sitting calmly at her feet. This dog taught me what real heroism looks like. It's not just the people who go off to fight. It's everyone who stays behind and keeps loving, keeps hoping, keeps believing that the people they love will come home. The crowd murmured in agreement. My mom, who worked 2 jobs and still made time to help Jimmy's dog remember him. Sarah's mom, who started a support group that helped dozens of families. Marcus's mom, who posted Duke's daily vigil and reminded thousands of people that waiting with faith is its own kind of courage. Mia's family, who kept living and loving even when their hearts were broken. Elena's voice grew stronger. The real hero of this story isn't any one person. It's the choice to keep loving even when love hurts. It's what these dogs did naturally and what we learned to do from watching them. She paused. But if I had to choose one person who embodies what I learned, it's my mom. Elena's mother looked up in shock. Because she's the one who taught me that heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and showing up anyway. Every single day. For 3 years she was terrified. Terrified for Jimmy, terrified for us, terrified that our family would fall apart. But she got up every morning, fed Rocket, packed my lunch, went to work, came home, and loved us through it. Tears streamed down Elena's face. She didn't deploy to a war zone, but she fought a battle just as real. The battle to keep hope alive in our home, to keep our family together, to make sure that when Jimmy came back, he'd have something worth coming back to. Elena looked at her mother. That's a hero, someone who doesn't give up on love, even when love is the hardest thing in the world. The entire town rose in applause. Elena's mother, this quiet woman who had simply done what needed to be done, stood there overwhelmed. Rocket pressed against her legs, Jimmy's arm around her shoulders. Later that night, all 4 soldiers and their dogs gathered at the park where they used to play as kids. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. Marcus watched Duke chase a ball with the same joy he'd had as a puppy, no longer waiting at windows. Sarah felt Luna's calm presence at her side, the anxiety gone, replaced with peace. Jimmy laughed as Rocket showed off his new tricks for an audience of his 3 friends, the little dog's pride evident in every backflip. Mia sat with Bear's head in her lap, his golden eyes peaceful, his job complete. They never gave up on us, Sarah said quietly. No, Marcus agreed. They taught us what we were fighting for. Not just freedom or duty, but this love that waits, this love that remembers, this love that never ever quits. As the sun set over Millbrook, 4 soldiers who had left as young people and returned as warriors sat with 4 dogs who had waited with a faith that moved a town, changed a community, and proved that some bonds are truly unbreakable. They had all come home, and in the coming home, they had all become heroes. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters in this world. And if you have a story of a pet who waited, who remembered, who loved through the distance, share it in the comments below. Let's build a community that never forgets the power of loyalty, hope, and unbreakable love. Because in a world that often feels divided and broken, these 4 dogs and the people who love them remind us, love always finds its way home.